at airports all over the world.
Hey, did you see a flying disc out by C-17?
Something is happening.
Pilots on the ground are reporting a UFO sighting.
Airlines and government agencies deny it.
Certainly there was a cover-up.
But Tower Audio exposes the truth.
We saw it a half hour ago.
Why are UFOs penetrating our most vulnerable airspace?
There could be something serious happening at O'Hare Airport.
What could make an 8,000-foot-long hole in a cloud?
Some sort of object that was radiating heat.
Be invisible to radar.
The FAA chose to say it doesn't exist.
And even the naked eye.
There are things that we may not be able to see, but they may actually be there.
This is case number 47206, Aliens at the Airport.
Caution for the UFO.
November 7th, 2006, 4:15 p.m. Chicago O'Hare International Airport is busy. There are approximately 100 departures and 100 arrivals every hour. But one object seems to have eluded the virtual web of radar and air traffic control that envelops the congested airspace. According to eyewitness testimony, hovering between 1,000 and 1,900 feet above gate C-17 of the United Airlines terminal is a dark gray disc-shaped object, estimated to be anywhere from 6 to 30 feet in diameter. The alleged UFO is reported by as many as a dozen United and O'Hare employees, including ground personnel, taxi mechanics, managers, and pilots. Air traffic control is made aware of the UFO, but claims it does not see the object on radar or from their tower. Then, at approximately 4:34 p.m., the alleged object shoots into the sky at incredible speed, blasting a hole through the dense cloud cover. To this day, United Airlines and the FAA say nothing unusual happened on November 7th.
You're struck by the fact that on that afternoon, a lot was going on that never made it out into the public, and everybody there is looking to sweep it under the rug.
You've got the entire air traffic control system at Chicago all involved in what appears to be, to use their own words, a UFO sighting.
The descriptions that we're hearing from these United mechanics are that this is clearly a solid craft, whatever it is.
On the ground in Chicago, Pat Uskert will uncover the details behind the sighting and how the story first broke.
We have to consider the possibility that there really was something hovering over this airport.
Dr. Ted Ackworth will fly a mission to see how a flying disc or anything else could evade radar over one of the busiest airports in the world.
I don't know of any way for any conventional aircraft to get into that airspace without actually being detected.
And Bill Burns will examine the safety implications of this event.
Sometimes people get so nervous about something that literally they become dismissive. There could be something serious happening at O'Hare Airport.
January 1st, 2007. After 2 months of research, journalist John Hilkovich of the Chicago Tribune publishes an article exposing the sighting at O'Hare Airport.
You're a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. How did you end up breaking this major UFO story?
Well, yeah, it's completely unusual for me to be working in this area. But actually, Peter Davenport of the National UFO Reporting Center called me in early November of 2006 shortly after this alleged sighting at O'Hare. We were able to rule out very quickly that this was not a hoax of any type. These are all aviation professionals, ranging from pilots to ramp workers to United Airlines managers who believed they saw something above the airspace at O'Hare and were very concerned both from a potential safety and potential security standpoint.
John's research reveals that at some point after 4 p.m., a United ramp worker at gate C-17 looks up and reports seeing a dark gray disc, which is later estimated to be approximately 22 feet in diameter, hovering between 1,000 and 1,900 feet above the gate. He tells the two mechanics inside the plane. A United Airlines manager hears the account over his company radio, walks outside of his office, and he too supposedly sees the disc-shaped object. Finally, two pilots parked at a gate also report seeing the UFO. After approximately 15 minutes, the disc accelerates up through the dense clouds and leaves behind a hole distinctly showing blue sky up above. But because the object does not appear on radar and cannot be seen from the control tower, the FAA refuses to investigate.
I at first tried to laugh it off and then just followed up with, well, our theory, and emphasizing theory, was this was some kind of weather phenomenon, but there was no investigation of any type.
Despite the witnesses' years of experience, the FAA proposes that the UFO is nothing more than a trick of light on the low cloud cover.
Why would the FAA choose to ignore credible witnesses like this?
It's in the FAA's regulations that they do not identify reports of UFOs, and that it specifically says that if a member of the public or anyone else sees what they think is a unidentified aerial phenomena, that they should either contact the National UFO Reporting Center or contact local authorities.
Now, United Airlines, they are not a government entity, they're a private company. How do they react?
Initially, United told me they had no knowledge of this sighting at all, and nothing in their logbooks, no documentation whatsoever.
But then, proof surfaces. After numerous Freedom of Information Act requests, the actual tower communications are released. Clearly, airport employees report seeing something. These are the actual communications between United Airlines employees and air traffic control. This is the first time they are being broadcast.
Did you see anything above United's concourse? They actually, believe it or not, they called us and said somebody observed a flying disc about 1,000 feet above the gate Charlie 17. You see anything over there?
No, we saw it a half hour ago.
Who saw it?
A whole bunch of us over at the Charlie concourse.
Really? You guys did? Who's it?
The United taxi mechanics.
But according to Hilkovich, United employees claim they are forbidden by the airline from speaking about the incident. He follows up on these claims and speaks with a United spokeswoman. During a phone conversation, she tells him, quote, "My concern is that my employees are coming forward and talking to you, which we have not authorized and will not authorize."
None of the employees were willing to have their names used in a newspaper because of the possible repercussions.
The investigation's attempt to get interviews with United employees are also met with a short but polite response. Quote, "Thank you for the invitation, for which we are going to have to decline."
Bottom line, were the FAA and United Airlines complicit in a cover-up?
Certainly there was a cover-up. Whether they communicated behind the scenes to come up with this story, I can't say. But they both denied any knowledge of the existence of these reports. There's radio evidence to show that they knew about it on November 7th.
These taped conversations from November 7th between the control tower and United employees revealed the entire story. Initially, tower officials sound skeptical as the first reports are relayed.
Hey, Dave, it's Tim from United Tower. Hey, did you see a flying disc out by C-17?
It starts. You're seeing flying discs.
Well, that's what the pilot and the ramp guys are telling us. The C-17, they saw some flying disc above, but we can't see above phrase?
I haven't mentioned anything, Sue. And if I did, I wouldn't admit to it.
My initial impression from listening to the tower audio was that it must be very strange for them to actually be faced with the possibility that they have a UFO over their airport.
But as reports from the ground continue to be received, the tone of the tower officials changes from skeptical to concerned.
Some of our pilots on the ground were reporting a UFO sighting at 1,000 feet from the seaside of the airport. Did you guys hear anything about that?
You know what? The ramp tower called me, I want to say about 10, 15 minutes ago. We have not seen anything up here.
Okay.
But we will surely keep an eye on, that's for sure.
We're listening to the incident, the real voices of real people from the tower talking to United employees who say they saw something over their heads and it was a UFO.
While the tower grapples with unconfirmed reports, several eyewitnesses finally step forward.
Somebody observed a flying disc about 1,000 feet above the gate Charlie 17. You see anything over there?
We saw it a half hour ago.
Who saw it?
A whole bunch of us over at the Charlie concourse.
Really? You guys did? Who's this?
The United taxi mechanics.
Now, area pilots are warned.
Somebody reported a UFO or a flying disc above Charlie concourse. Nobody could see it, but use caution. 668, you can use Alpha and Northport and use caution for the UFO.
The O'Hare incident is not the first UFO sighting near an airport. 1978, at McCarran International Airport in Las Vegas, both pedestrians and a pilot see a disc-shaped UFO with glowing white lights. And 1997, over JFK Airport in New York, a Swissair 747 barely misses a glowing white cylindrical object traveling at a high rate of speed. One organization that did do a thorough investigation of the November 7th sighting is NARCAP, the National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena. As an organization, NARCAP deals exclusively with pilots and air traffic controllers who report UAPs or unidentified aerial phenomena. Bill meets with NARCAP Executive Director Ted Rowe.
Why did you get involved in the Chicago O'Hare case?
The Chicago O'Hare case involved an unidentified aerial phenomena that intruded into Class B restricted airspace over the C terminal at O'Hare and very clearly represented an aviation safety hazard.
Class B airspace extends to 10,000 feet above America's busiest airports. These areas are thoroughly monitored by air traffic control, and all aircraft must obtain clearance before entering. Unidentified aircraft pose a significant problem.
There is no contingency in place for pilots, air controllers, or radar operators when it comes to dealing with unidentifieds.
You're saying that UAPs represent a threat to air traffic safety, especially in the case of O'Hare.
NARCAP investigators write an exhaustive 155-page report on the incident. They conclude, quote, an official government inquiry should be carried out.
Had this phenomenon moved into lanes of oncoming air traffic, it could have resulted in catastrophe.
How could an object make its way undetected through one of the most monitored and controlled airspaces in the world? Ted is about to take a flight into O'Hare to see just how secure this airspace is.
Could some sort of craft penetrate Chicago O'Hare airspace?
While a video reveals how close these encounters can really become. The team is in Chicago, Illinois, investigating the report of a disc-shaped UFO that was seen by United Airlines personnel on November 7, 2006 at O'Hare International Airport. Illinois has been a magnet for reported UFO activity in recent years. Previous investigations have examined the mass sighting of a huge triangular formation of lights over the nearby suburb of Tinley Park in 2004, and the intense pursuit of another triangular craft in southern Illinois by 5 different police departments in 2000. Now, the UFO sightings have come to the state's largest city and one of the busiest airports in the world. The strange object seen at O'Hare allegedly hovered over gate C-17 in the United Concourse for about 15 minutes before reportedly rising rapidly into the cloud cover, leaving a round hole in its wake. But how could this object have entered this highly controlled area in the first place? The skies above Chicago O'Hare are some of the most closely monitored in the world. Ted is about to stage a flight to see how even a small plane must go through intense scrutiny in approaching this airport.
The purpose of the flight is really to put to the test whether or not some sort of craft could penetrate Chicago O'Hare airspace without going through these various levels of air traffic control and radar coverage.
Controlled airspace around the world is organized as imaginary cylinders that fit around airports. The cylinders get narrower as aircraft descend to lower altitudes and make their approach. If mapped out, they look like an upside-down wedding cake. At each successive layer of the wedding cake, the degree of communication with the control tower and the demands on the pilot increase. Scott Schweider, a local flight instructor, will help Ted navigate his way into O'Hare.
Now getting in there isn't going to be easy.
Right.
They're going to have to move a lot of traffic for us.
It'll be busy.
Ted is flying out of Chicago Executive Airport, about 10 miles north of O'Hare.
3-4, clear for takeoff. Here we go. All right, ready to go.
After receiving clearance from Chicago Executive's tower, Ted ascends to 3,000 feet at the bottom of the third tier. As he nears O'Hare, he is contacted by Chicago Approach Control before descending to 2,000 feet and the second layer. In this layer, he is being constantly watched by tower personnel and by radar. He receives 2 more contacts before reaching the lowest tier, where he is finally handed off to Chicago O'Hare's tower.
Somewhere around maybe 5 or 10 nautical miles, we switch over to the tower control.
Change to 126.9 now. Monitor that frequency.
It's a very smooth handoff to the air traffic controllers, and they see us on the radar, they see our altitude and our identification.
Now that he has descended through each controlled layer, Ted is cleared to land.
We've cleared the runway, which means we finish our rollout and turn to the left or the right to get onto a taxiway.
But even here, Ted is tracked and given instructions by another controller.
414, turn right heading 070.
Ground control is in the control tower, and they have a visual view of all the ground area of the airport, and they're managing the ground-based traffic.
With such a complicated system, including multiple air traffic controllers, restricted zones, and ground control, how could any object navigate over this airport without being tracked by numerous officials?
I don't think there's any way that a conventional aircraft could get into Chicago, or really any fully controlled airspace, without being detected.
With no ground workers or pilots willing to go on record, other corroborating witnesses are key to confirming the O'Hare sighting. And Sam Moranto, director of the Illinois Mutual UFO Network, has one.
What we really want is an eyewitness who's totally independent of the FAA and United Airlines.
Well, Pat, I think we have the witness.
Sam's witness claims to have been in a car driving to O'Hare when she notices something in the sky.
She was coming down Mannheim Road where she had noticed the object over gate C-17 and went off into the international area, parked as soon as possible, got out with her and her friend, and observed the object for some length of time with groups of people in and about the area.
The witness, known only as Ms. J.H., comes forward after Hilkovich's article in the Tribune. She requests anonymity, but consents to a taped phone interview with Sam. And for her protection, her voice has been altered.
At the point when I first saw it, it was straight ahead of me, slightly to the left, and just sitting there. Didn't in any way look like a plane. It seemed very much to absorb and take on the colors of its surroundings.
From her description, I'm gathering that this thing would have been very difficult to see.
This description of a UFO appearing to blend with the atmosphere is similar to another aerial sighting reported over Paris in 1994. An Air France captain also sees a disc that he claims dematerializes in front of his eyes. Is this a second account of a UFO that is able to utilize a new form of stealth technology? But the object over Chicago's appearance is not its only unconventional capability.
It went from just a dead zero to just God only knows what instant velocity. I mean, it just went, and people gasped, and a couple people totally squealed when it took off.
The reactions are so strong, to squeal, to screech.
Because you're thinking, what could do that?
It was very obviously not cloud. It was very obviously a solid object. It didn't change shape in any way. It obviously wasn't a balloon that was subject to the wind. It didn't move with the wind. This wasn't some, case of lights that look a little unusual at night or anything like that. This was just a very blatant daytime sighting.
This was explained away as a weather phenomenon. That was the official FAA explanation, but she says this is not a cloud. It was not drifting with the breeze. It's not a balloon. She says this is a very solid, structured craft. Without a doubt, this woman saw the exact same thing that the United personnel saw. She was essentially describing a strange disc-shaped craft that flew off and punched a hole through the clouds. So I believe they saw the same thing.
With witnesses requesting anonymity, the investigation turns to an actual air traffic controller in the O'Hare Tower that day.
Somebody observed a flying disc about 1,000 feet above Gate Charlie 17.
And he is speaking out for the very first time on television.
United Airlines employees saw some type of strange object.
The team is in Chicago, investigating an alleged UFO reported by United Airlines employees on November 7, 2006. The FAA, citing a lack of radar or visual evidence, refuses to investigate. United Airlines conducts an internal investigation. And reporter John Hilkovich confirms they forbid their employees to speak of the sighting publicly. Having heard the tower tapes firsthand, Pat and Bill meet with Craig Burzik, an air traffic controller with 22 years experience. 18 of those years at O'Hare. Craig is handling ground control on November 7, 2006. He is speaking about this on television for the first time. On the tapes, it is Craig who asks if the other planes see the UFO reported over C-17.
Gateway 5668?
5668, go ahead.
Yeah, look out your window. Do you see anything above United Concourse? They actually, believe it or not, they called us and said somebody observed a flying disc.
How did this incident start for you?
The supervisor usually takes the phone call, which he did, and he put the phone down and just kind of yelled out to everybody that United Airlines was on the phone, and they were saying that some of their employees were claiming that they saw some type of strange object hovering above the United terminal. And so he basically asked everybody, does anybody see anything? Did anybody see anything before? Do we have any helicopters hovering around, that sort of thing? And the answer was no.
Even though he does not see anything over the gate, Craig asks other planes about the alleged UFO.
Somebody somebody observed a flying disc about 1,000 feet above the Charlie 17. You see anything over there?
I had a regional jet which was parked in a holding area on the opposite side of United's terminal. So I went out to that pilot and informed him that somebody had called and were claiming they saw something. Did you see anything? And his response was, no, we don't see anything, and we did not see anything. He had been there for about 20 minutes.
But then Craig's communication with the regional jet is broken into by a United taxi mechanic who is moving a plane back to the terminal.
We saw it a half hour ago.
Who saw it?
A whole bunch of us over at the Charlie concourse.
Really? You guys did? Who's it?
The United taxi mechanic.
So what happens when you get these two conflicting reports? How do you try to resolve them in your own mind?
Had we saw something up there like they did, then obviously it would have been much different, but really we didn't see anything. There were no fewer than 15 people up in the tower cab at that time. Controllers, supervisors, traffic management people. You know, we work in a building that's designed to see aircraft. I mean, that's what our job is. Our job description is safety. We have a clear view, 360 degrees, and the only blind spot I would say would be directly above the control tower.
Yet according to the NARCAP report on the O'Hare incident, there is a flaw in the tower design. Based on NARCAP's calculations, an air traffic controller standing next to the console and facing gate C17 would have a vertical view of about 30 degrees arc before his vision would be blocked by the outsized overhanging roof and upper window frame. He could only see a maximum of 1,800 feet above ground level.
The NARCAP report says that since this object was estimated to be at 1,900 feet, you would not have seen it from the tower. How to react to that?
That's not true. The control tower is United's terminal lies directly in front of the control tower, and opposite of the terminal there are two of the main runways. If it was hovering over United's terminal, we would have saw it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, if you had seen something, what would you have done?
We'll stop departures, we'll stop arrivals, we'll put airplanes in a hold. We just didn't see anything. There was nothing there to investigate, and there was no impact on the operation.
In Craig's opinion, the sighting is caused by a weather phenomenon.
I'm not saying they didn't see anything, but what they saw was likely some kind of reflection that was positional in nature. It was kind of dusk. We had wet pavement the entire day. You have airplanes all over, hundreds of airplanes with flashing lights. And United's terminal is all glass. There's a lot of reflection.
I understand that Craig Verzik believes that nothing went on, but I also had the chance to talk with John Hilkovich, who was there on the ground talking to the eyewitnesses. These were very credible eyewitnesses. These were experienced people. They all gave accounts of something that was a clearly defined object. I don't know how to reconcile the two.
But one final detail of the O'Hare incident may prove to be the most telling. According to the witnesses, the UFO ascended quickly, punching a hole in the cloud covering through which they could see blue sky. It's not the first time witnesses to alleged UFO sightings have reported seeing strange holes punched in the clouds. In Newfoundland in 1947, in Warwickshire, England in 1977, and as recently as 2002 in Ventura, California. Ted meets with meteorologist William Puckett, one of the authors of the NARCAP report on the Chicago UFO.
The witnesses who reported seeing this phenomenon up in the cloud formation, were they looking directly overhead or way out horizontally to the side?
My understanding is that they were looking straight up. And right after the object had made its split-second ascent, they saw this hole in the cloud. They saw blue sky.
Do you know from the meteorological history where the cloud tops were that day?
We were able to determine that the tops of the clouds were at 10,000 feet.
If the UFO enters the cloud cover at 1,900 feet and then blasts through them to 10,000 feet, the hole is about 8,000 feet long.
So what you're saying is we've got this cylindrical hole that's basically 8,000 feet tall. What kind of energy would it take to convert that into clear air?
That amount of evaporation in 1 or 2 seconds' time is an astronomical amount of energy.
By some estimates, As much as 100 megawatts of power is needed to generate enough heat for creating a hole this large. In comparison, the engines of a 747, pushing their nearly 400,000-pound aircraft fast enough to break the speed of sound, would use only about 60 megawatts, roughly half the energy of whatever punched through the clouds over Chicago.
There are really only a couple of ways you could introduce heat into a cloud column like that. One would be some sort of object that was radiating heat as it climbed. The other would be something much more lightning fast, an electromagnetic impulse that would heat the air column itself. And that's the only possibility I can think of that would be plausible, because the descriptions, again, say that it happens so quickly.
Between the object's ability to evade radar, its ability to blend into the atmosphere, and its ability to punch an 8,000-foot hole through dense cloud cover, the craft clearly displays extraordinary characteristics. But the O'Hare incident is not the only account of an advanced UFO penetrating supposedly secure airspace. Authenticated video shows a fiery object buzzing an airliner in Japan, and the crew apparently sees nothing. Can these UFOs, allegedly seen over airports, become invisible?
Is it possible for something to appear on video but not be seen with the naked eye?
Well, sure.
An alleged UFO over Chicago O'Hare has raised concerns about airport security, but another case could prove even more unsettling. October 23, 2004, about 30 miles to the east of Itami International Airport in Osaka, Japan. Mr. Kyoshi Amamiya is videotaping airplanes when he spots something he can't quite comprehend. His tape has never been released to the public. It has never been broadcast on television. A fiery glowing object appears to be on a collision course with an approaching airliner. The light seems to pass dangerously close to the wing. The camera tracks the object as its shape transforms. At first, it appears as a solid hot bloom. Then a second heat source materializes. Finally, after 3 minutes, the object begins to fade, and then vanishes. Although the object is clearly seen in the camera's viewfinder, when the cameraman looks for himself, he sees nothing. The object is invisible to the naked eye. NARCAP Director Ted Rowe and investigator Bill Puckett have brought this to the attention of the UFO Hunters investigation into airport incursions.
It's a very compelling video for the mere fact that we have an object coming close to an aircraft. It appeared that the aircraft did not see the object.
Well, this video is important. We suspect that it demonstrates that there are categories of unidentified aerial phenomena that can't be seen visually with the naked eye.
But this isn't the first time video has captured something that appears to be invisible. A previous investigation looked at footage from the Volusia County, Florida Sheriff's Office that shows a dumbbell-shaped object on infrared video. The object was also over an airport, and it was also invisible to the naked eye. What kind of technology is capable of rendering a flying object invisible? And why is the camera able to see what we cannot? Pat meets with Ted and Dr. Peter Morse from the physics department of Santa Monica College to find out.
I'm looking for scientific answers. Is it possible for something to appear on video but not be seen with the naked eye?
Well, sure. I mean, visible light's part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and we just see a little piece of it, but there's all sorts of other parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. Gamma rays, X-rays, radio waves, and infrared. So, you know, our eyes don't see some parts of the spectrum. Maybe it was part of the spectrum we couldn't see.
If you're using a video camera like this, this is not a perfect match to the human eye. So it actually captures information on either side of what we see with our eye.
Ted believes one explanation why the object over Japan might be visible to the camera, but not the camera operator, is because it could have been emitting infrared light. The human eye can only see a small part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Infrared light is just beyond this range. But some video cameras are more sensitive and can see more than the eye is capable of, including infrared light.
This is our infrared flashlight, and has a light source in here that only emits infrared, so you won't be able to see it with the naked eye. So if you look down here, I'm shining this flashlight right onto the plastic.
So this is on right now?
Absolutely.
I don't see anything.
Look at the camera.
I can see.
Clearly holding.
I can see that it's on.
Flashlight.
Infrared is used in many different technologies. The military uses infrared lasers to guide heat-seeking missiles towards and away from targets. And NASA uses it to transmit information across thousands of miles of space. What this suggests is that if the object in the Japanese video is emitting infrared light, it could be capable of projecting a form of communication or a form of weaponry, and either could be a significant hazard near an airport.
There are things that we may not be able to see, but they may actually be there, meaning that there's a definite connection between this JAL 1521 video footage and the object seen over Chicago O'Hare.
How are objects infiltrating secure airspace without being seen? Digital analysis of the Osaka video may finally provide an answer to the mystery surrounding these airport sightings.
The speed would be beyond any aircraft that we have.
Numerous employees at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport claim to see a disc-shaped object, but control tower officials and radar see nothing. A luminous orb is caught on tape over Japan and seems to fly dangerously close to a jetliner, but it can't be seen with the naked eye. Are these alleged UFOs displaying advanced capabilities that prevent them from being seen or detected? Ted has called on image analyst Terrence Masson to try and identify the unknown object.
I noticed it goes really close to the wing.
That plane cannot be more than 1,000 feet away. I mean, it's very close. If we can determine whether or not the object is on this side of the aircraft, it means it's less than 1,000 feet away.
Terrence isolates, sharpens, and zooms in as tightly as possible on the wingtip. But the image is inconclusive.
To my eye, I would guess that it was behind the wing. What do you think?
To me, it looks like the object's between the aircraft and us. It's closer. We're definitely at the limit of the information available in the image.
Not knowing the object's relative location to the plane means calculating the speed of the object will help give additional clues.
The first thing I'll do is stabilize around that large aircraft that's in the foreground of the frame. And that way we can isolate that object and judge the relative speed of our orb that's flying through frame.
The stabilized image makes the airplane appear frozen in space. The object's actual flight path and movement past the airplane can now be accurately measured.
It looks like in about 1 second of video, it's traveling what appears to be about 2 lengths of wingtip to wingtip.
Right.
It's doing about 350 to 400 feet per second.
Right.
Which gets us to 500 miles per hour.
Ted estimates that if the object is at the same distance as the airplane, it is moving roughly 500 miles per hour. If it is closer, it travels a shorter distance in the same amount of time, meaning it is slower. But if it is in the distance, it could be traveling faster than anything built by humans.
So we have a contradiction here. If it were near to us and within a reasonable speed, we should be able to see the structure. Now, if it's very far away from us, we wouldn't be able to see the structure, which we can't. But the math tells us that the speed would be beyond any aircraft that we have.
Terrence is also able to prove that the object is moving away from the camera.
Clearly, it's disappearing in the distance. It's being affected by the atmospheric distortion, the haze. It's fading off. You see, the color saturation goes down. That's all consistent with an object moving away in distance.
This rules out military jets or helicopters because they would be closer and identifiable earlier in the video. And another characteristic also eliminates anything conventional.
When the object should supposedly be extremely close to us, it looks like a single orb. When it's in the midfield, it does look like two distinct point sources of light very close together. And then as it fades away, they merge into one point. Why would it go from being a single orb when it's the closest, and when it's in the midfield, it would be a double, and then further away, it's back to a single again? That's not really consistent. We still don't know what this is, and I'm not sure we'll ever be able to get a conclusive decision on this.
In both Chicago and Japan, the identity of these objects remains elusive. One evades radar and supposedly uses more power than a 747 to blow through 8,000 feet of cloud cover, while another remains invisible and could be traveling at speeds beyond any known aircraft. If technology like this cannot be identified in sensitive airspace, what are the repercussions? Bill meets with former British Ministry of Defense official Nick Pope, who was responsible for investigating and researching UFOs for the British government.
It doesn't matter what UFOs are. It doesn't matter whether you're a skeptic or a believer. If you've got something unidentified operating in the controlled, restricted airspace, then it's an air safety issue.
Alarmed by the FAA's refusal to investigate the incident at O'Hare, Pope writes an op-ed piece in the New York Times entitled Unidentified Flying Threats in July 2008.
A healthy skepticism about extraterrestrial space travelers leads people to disregard UFO sightings without a moment's thought. But in the United States, this translates into over-dependence on radar data and indifference to all kinds of unidentified aircraft.
Whatever these objects are, because they're in commercial airspace, we have to take something seriously.
If we're not interested in something, and unless it behaves like a conventional aircraft, it makes us vulnerable both to terrorism and to espionage.
A commercial airliner on final approach to land is probably one of the most dangerous phases of flight, and the potential of some sort of interference hitting an aircraft at that phase of flight is actually an extreme danger.
If pilots and ground crew, whose job it is to protect the safety of the aircraft, if they say they see something, their testimony should be taken as rock solid.
This may actually be working against us. By keeping this UFO phenomenon a secret, pilots themselves are in a danger of not knowing what to do when they encounter a UFO. The FAA or the government or someone needs to really put in place some kind of protocol.
As the UFO phenomenon continues to be denied, technological capabilities seem to be escalating. And with no official policy or investigation into these events, can we really consider our skies